The aim of this paper is to show how theories and methodologies developed as a part of a larger feminist theories, in particular queer study, can be useful in the study of the šà-zi.ga therapy. The term queer was used for the first time by Teresa de Lauretis in a conference which she organized at the University of California, Santa Cruz in the 1990s. Queer, English term with a pejorative character for bizarre, eccentric, unusual, became an essential critical instrument for reformulating the way of looking at the world and at the knowledge. Let us start giving you some information on šà-zi.ga text. šà-zi.ga in Sumerian, Nishlibi in Akkadian, is a name of a group of texts. They contain rituals and spells that serve to recover sexual desire. The oldest Akkadian texts are from the Middle Babylonian period, from the city of Bogatskoi, the ancient Hattusha. However, most of the šà-zi.ga ritual spells were discovered in Nineveh and Assur, so they were written in the Neo-Syrian period. The expression Nishlibi literally means raising of the libu. But what does libu mean? The word, as you know, is very complex. Libu can indicate the inners, the belly, the heart. However, libu is also the place of feelings and thoughts. The libu is the place of an union between emotion and physicality, dichotomy which has been questioned by the anthropological writings thanks to the study of medical concepts and practices of ethnological and traditional societies. It is therefore a kind of psychness of the human organs or a physicality of feelings and thoughts. Now let us continue with the feminist and post-feminism theories. Of course, it is not the case to illustrate the theoretical reflections of the feminist scholar pioneer Simone de Beauvoir and her famous volume Le Deuxième Sexe. De Beauvoir's thought will be reassumed by the members of the so-called second wave feminism, among them Louise Irigaray, Belgian philosopher and psychanalyst, emerges. In their book Speculum de l'autre femme, the scholar analyzed the history of Western philosophical thought, showing how it is all masculine inflected. Toutes les théories du sujet ont toujours été appropriées au masculin, whereas in Éthique de la différence sexuelle, she states, l'homme a fait le sujet du discours, théorique, moral, politique. Aim of Irigaray is to show how sexual difference has been culturally constructed in the frame of a male ideology which has naturalized it. The woman, as other, is always conceived starting from the man, whereas the latter is considered emblem of mankind. Thinking woman, or better, the women outside of male ideology, entails a change of perspective, which allows a rethinking of epistemological certainties. This is, I think, the main contribution of the second wave feminism to our analysis to šà-zi.ga therapy. A remounting of the viewpoint of analysis, shifting our attention from the man to the woman. So the first question I want to answer is the loss of Nishlibi, so the sexual desire, a male problem? The Assyriologists had considered the problem of losing sexual desire only as a male problem, leaving aside the role of the woman in the therapeutic process. Biggs, who gave the first comprehensive edition of this corpus regarding the patient, says, an important point is that only men are said to have šà-zi.ga. Women are never addressed in šà-zi.ga incantations. This, in fact, helps to distinguish love incantations from šà-zi.ga incantations. Nevertheless, I would like to pay specific attention on the role played by the woman in the therapeutic process, since they often appear and not only as a ritual actor. And I quote some examples. For example, you the ashipu, apply the medical preparation to the woman's navel. The man and the woman will find satisfaction together. Or it's a ritual. You mix together those made of emmer and potter's clay. You make figurines of the man and the woman. Put them one upon the other and place them at the man's end. You recite this incantation 3 times. The man and the woman desire each other, and their desire does not reduce. It is clear then that the woman plays an important role in the therapeutic process. Many incantations, for example, are recited by the female partner. In addition, there is an explicit reference to woman's nishlipi. It is a fragmentary catalogue of medical texts where we found šà-zi.ga munus kam, so nishlipi for a woman. Often it is stated that the aim of the ritual practice is the release of the libu of the man and the woman. The text, therefore, refer to sexual desire and excitement of both man and woman. The importance given to the woman agency leads us to understand that the single individual as a social atom is not cured. The therapeutic action is a direct to social molecules which the sickness strikes, subverting social ties and harmony, in this case the sexual relations between man and woman. The individualizing approach to the sickness, which neglects its nature of a social reality, isolating the patient from his relational network, is the logical consequence of a perspective focused only on the body, even when on the organs and tissues. On the contrary, therefore, it is a social therapy which has as recipients both the man and the woman. It is clear then that one of the great contributions of gender and queer studies can offer is in the first place in the realm of epistemology, acquiring different points of view. Both Afro-American and lesbian feminists played an important role criticizing both Western epistemology and some aspects of the previous feminist movement. Such outsider voices have allowed a critique within the feminist movement, which brought to the analysis of the so-called post-feminism and queer studies. Such thinkers find their lifeblood not only in the feminist knowledge, but also in post-colonial thought and the post-structuralistic philosophy, in particular Foucault's study of the interactions between body and knowledge and power. Policies of the scholar's location are instrumental in this critique. Under this new perspective, one understands the concepts, for example, of marginality, of Belux, or lesbian, of Whitting, and partly of cyborg, of Haraway. All these concepts have in common, even with differences, the acquiring different other views which allow living, acting, and make research in another way. For example, as underlined by Teresa de Laurentiis, Whitting's term lesbian as that of a lesbian society is not referred to the woman's sexual orientations. Differently, they are the theoretical terms of a form of feminist consciousness that can only exist historically in the here and now as the consciousness of something else. We, lesbian, mestizia, and inappropriated other are all terms for the excessive critical position attained through practices of political and personal displacement across boundaries between sociosexual identities in the community, between bodies and discourses, by what I like to call the eccentric subject. It is clear then that gender becomes an epistemological perspective, a critical analytical concept which allows reanalyzing some of the so-considered essential works in each specific discipline. Under such perspective, I have analyzed the Forschungsgeschichte of the subject of šà-zi.ga therapy, and particularly on the way in which the absence of Niche-Libby has been described by Assyriologists. If on one hand some Assyriologists have interpreted the Akkadian expression as a sexual desire, so for example Landsberger, Kinner-Wilson, some others have interpreted it as a sexual potency, Ebeling or Biggs. The latter, Biggs, have reduced the matter to a merely biological level. Biggs states, from a study of šà-zi.ga text, there can be no doubt that they are intended to alleviate sexual impotence, or, as it is termed today, erectile dysfunction, or penile erectile dysfunction. Under this biomedical reductionism, Niche-Libby, so literally the raising of the libum, is an euphemism for erection. Biggs' attention to the biomedical aspects was radicalized by Scarlock and Andersen in their book Diagnosis in Assyrian and Babylonian Medicine. The aim of this book is to provide a comprehensive analysis of the all available ancient Mesopotamian text with modern biomedical diagnosis and prognosis. After analyzing the sexually transmitted disease, they discuss sexual impotence in the chapter Genitourinary Tract Diseases. This disease is included in the section entitled Sexual Dysfunctions, together with the priapism, nocturnal emission, and premature ejaculation. What we find then is a reduction of the complexity of gender construction and sexuality to a merely biological level because it is considered as a natural. Such biomedical methodology is certainly not helping when willing to understand how this sickness was conceptualized in Mesopotamia. Let us return to the queer theoretical perspective. For feminism, being man and woman means to have embodied cultural behaviors, ideologies, and knowledge which are specific of different historical and cultural contexts. In addition, in post-feminism and queer studies, the attention is shifted, what can be interesting for us, on the way in which the gender operates within the process of subjectivation of the individual. Regarding this, I would like to pay specific attention on Judith Butler's concept of performativity. In Gender Trouble, or Undoing Gender, Butler argues that the subject is performative, a performative result in continuous becoming. Gender is in self produced as an effect of a performance. She stresses that there is no performer that pre-exists to the acts, but both coexist at the same time. In this regard, in fact, the scholar makes an important distinction between performance, which implies the existence of a subject, and performative, which instead does not apply it. If gender is performative, it means that gender is not exactly what one is, nor is it precisely what one has, but rather undoing, an unending sequence of acts. So we have progressed to considering gender from an ontological perspective to a viewpoint of practice and citationality. Quoting gender behavioral norms in daily practice, in other words, doing gender, involves, on the other hand, a process of subjectivation. Butler uses the concept of altessurs, so the concept of interpellation. Interpellation is, for Louis Althusser, the process through which an ideology aims at the pre-ideological individual, creating it as a distinct subject. I think that putting attention on the performativity is very important for the study of ancient therapy. The healing ritual, such as the one for the recovery of lost sexual desire, involves the restatement of the order that the sickness destroyed. Problems to the sexual sphere of the man and the couple inevitably involve a crisis of male gender qualities. So the man has lost what characterizes himself as man. This critical moment allows reiterating what are the qualities which characterize the male gender, in Mesopotamia, of course. The ritual of the bow has therefore this function. This text provides a portion in beer to drink on empty stomach. The heart of a partridge is eaten by the patient. Central part of the ritual is the realization of a small bow of thorn with a string made with the tendon of the so-called roof mouth. This bow must be placed on the end of both man and woman. In a šà-zi incantation, the association between battle and sexual sphere is clear and expressed by means of the metaphor of the bow, which should not become slack, and that of the quiver that must not be empty, so that is devoid of arouse. In this text, the intercourse is compared with the battle. The man must be always ready to fight, having his quiver and bow in order, as likewise he should not interrupt the intercourse. The bow is in this incantation the penis of the patient. According to Hofner, the masculinity in Mesopotamian was measured by two criteria: prowess in battle and ability to sire children. Because these two aspects of masculinity were frequently associated with each other, the symbols which represent this masculinity to himself and his society often possessed a double reference. Those symbols which primarily referred to his military exploits often served to remind him of his sexual ability as well. Regarding the work I'm doing on the description of male sexuality, the animal metaphors in šà-zi incantation are an interesting object of analysis. Animal metaphors are the most obvious conceptual and stylistic device in each living incantation to give normative models. In this text, the man is defined a wild animal which, however, lost his fury, his strength, his sexual vigor. The following text show these metaphors. But what role do the animal metaphors have in the therapeutic process? According to Lake, the purpose of the animal metaphors is to cause sexual images. The suggestion of Lake is that by means of the principles of analogical magic, man can acquire strength by the invocation of sexually excited animals. Those sexual images allow the patient to think of participating of the sexual power of these animals. The idea of pigs is a little divergent. According to the scholar, the function of these metaphors is psychological. If for the Assyriologist the diagnosis is the erectile dysfunction, and one of the causes of this disease is psychological, these animal sexual images are used in order to produce a mental stimulation, comparable to that produced by contemporary pornographic movies. On the contrary, I analyze those animal metaphors from a queer studies perspective. They show a set of concepts related to sexuality used for their normative power on the society and especially on the male gender and sexuality. Wild animals themselves convey ideas related to a male sexuality as active, irrepressible, vigorous, a sexuality indomitable, which cannot be subject to a control process or limitation. The choice of animals from the wild world is therefore functional to create an idea of a strong, aggressive, and proud male sexuality. But why are animals used in this regulatory process? The connection between animality and gender, represented by the metaphors, was investigated, for example, in anthropology. Animals are, in the famous definition of Lévi-Strauss, bon à penser, and for this reason their metaphorical use should be studied. As the anthropologist Branders underlines, animal metaphors play in promoting social control. They reinforce the social and moral order. Animals constitute an important repertoire of arguments for the construction of models of naturality. They are thought as eternally identical to themselves and therefore safe comparison for the variety of a human ethology. They are used within a normative model that is an apparatus of a representation of the world, so what the world is, used as a mirror, used as a proof of objective values, values that the model intends to impose, what the world has to be. Another typical image of an Libby text is that of the animals tied to the bed of the patient or of the female partner. The animals tied to the bed are different in the incantations. The first case mentions a ram and a winged sheep, the second one a ram and a buck. In the latter, the text, the one who recites the incantation, is the woman, which addresses the patient identified with animals. In conclusion, the healing ritual, in order to combat the critical moment caused by the sickness, can reiterate what the gender features in Mesopotamia are. So the association between a battle and intercourse, the use of animal metaphors, and so on. The ritual is performed, allowing a process of undoing gender. Although this process is continuous at all time of the life, I think that the ritual practice is a privileged place for a modern scholar studying ancient world who want to analyze ancient therapy on the gender subjectivation. Particularly, it is possible for its social and collective nature. The sickness and the healing process always should be investigated on a social level, because the community is more or less directly the recipient of the ritual, because the social rules of a community are confirmed through the ritual. Thank you.